The Acolyte is going in a flash, and it feels like I'm learning next to nothing about any of the characters. It seems to be up in the air if it will get a season 2, and Disney, please make more of The Acolyte. It's comedy gold. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be a mystery thriller and not a comedy, but if someone bakes a loaf of bread hard enough that you can use it as a hammer, doing that seems like a better idea than trying to eat it. Please make a season 2, Disney, please. It's great material for videos.
Do it.
Now, this is a series that the guys at Red Letter Media recently did a video on, and Rich of Red Letter Media described The Acolyte as mediocre.
This is highly mediocre.
But is it? Or have their brains maybe broke? Because I tried watching their close to an hour-and-a-half video that was supposed to be about The Acolyte, I get half an hour in, and they'd barely even talked about the show. They seem to think the show is average and people are only attacking it for the politics, but for me the biggest problem in the show isn't the politics, it's the writing. Character motivations are a consistent problem in The Acolyte, and the worst offender by far for me is the character May, because in episode 4 she described revenge on the Jedi as something she wants more than anything.
I want this more than anything, but it's impossible.
She then changed her mind in the next scene.
I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to kill a Jedi without a weapon. I don't need to keep this deal. What?
May betrayed her Sith master in that scene because she'd found out that her twin sister Osha was alive, and that is now who had her loyalty.
You were wrong. Osha being alive changes everything. My loyalty is to Osha, not your master.
What?
So she tried to surrender to the Jedi Kelnaka.
What are you doing?
What I'm going to do is surrender myself to Kelnaka, and then turn myself into the Jedi.
And would therefore be unable to do the thing that nothing was more important than to her. But she found out that her Sith master had got to the Jedi Kelnaka first and done him in. So as of the end of episode 4, May wants to surrender to the Jedi and reconcile with her sister. Okay? Now we go on to episode 5, and May gets seen by one of the Jedi, Jeki. Jeki attacks May, hitting her with a missile dropkick. The Jedi were sent here to try and get May, alive if they could, for bumping off those 2 Jedi Masters. So why did none of them take stun weapons that have been used in the show already? I don't know. Jeki tries to arrest May and puts handcuffs on her. Meanwhile, May is trying to stab Jeki. So question, why exactly is May trying to stab Jeki for trying to arrest her, instead of, surrendering? When May's whole motivation just last episode was explicitly stated as being to surrender to the Jedi and reconcile with her sister Osha.
What are you doing?
What I'm going to do is surrender myself to Kelnaka, and then turn myself into the Jedi.
Answer, I don't know. In short, May's whole plan, remember, was to turn herself in to get arrested. Then a Jedi tries to arrest her, and she tries to stab them in the throat. Then later, May meets her sister Osha in person. Osha blames May for the fire that May started when they were children, that Osha thinks did in their 2 mothers. In reality, it was probably the Jedi that did it. But if that is the case, May doesn't tell Osha that. Why? I don't know. Osha then tries to arrest May for doing in Jedi Masters.
You're a criminal, May. You must pay for your crimes. What are you doing? What I came here to do. Arrest you.
Osha intends to take May back to the Jedi for trial, so May knocks Osha out. Remember, May's whole motivation just last episode was explicitly stated as being to surrender to the Jedi and reconcile with her sister. She can go with her sister right now, so why does she knock her out? I don't know. She also leaves Osha to be found unconscious by the very angry Sith Lord who May betrayed last episode. The very angry Sith Lord who tried to stab May with a lightsaber multiple times in episode 5. They're also identical twins, so it should be expected that when the Sith Lord sees Osha, he may think it's May and do her in. So why did May leave her sister at the mercy of an angry Sith Lord when her sister is who had her loyalty and that's who she had to live for? I have absolutely no idea. The Sith Lord doesn't do her in though. Why? I don't know that either. In my review of episode 5, I tried to be as nice as I could to the Acolyte, and despite the show not saying it, thought maybe the Sith Lord somehow knew it was Osha and not May, despite the show not really demonstrating that in any way at all. But after I thought about it, that doesn't work either, because the Sith Lord had also tried to do in Osha in episode 5, so even if he thought it was Osha and not May, he maybe should have finished her off anyway. So why didn't he? When he found her unconscious, I don't know that either. Maybe he forgot about wanting to impale her just 10 minutes earlier. Maybe the writers also forgot to do any kind of build-up or explanation of the bad guy's helmet that breaks lightsabers when he headbutts them. If you wanted that explanation, by the way, you needed to have read a novel from 2014, which included a substance called cortosis that the helmet is made of. Or you could maybe wait a week until the next episode where it gets one line of explanation. When leaving her sister, May also cut her own hair to match her sister's and took her clothes, and considering what a lightsaber does to steel, I'm not sure why it didn't set her hair on fire. May did this so she could go to the Jedi Sol, pretend to be Osha and leave with him. Why? I don't know. Maybe the show will explain at some point when she wants to go with Sol, but I might not be surprised if they never do. By episode 6, she's back to wanting revenge on the Jedi again. Why does Sol not suspect it may be May and not Osha when they're identical twins? I don't know. Why doesn't Sol use his ability to scan people's thoughts, as episode 5 has established he has, to check if it really is Osha? I don't know that either. Maybe he forgot he could do that again. He does that a lot. If he'd remembered he could do that, he would have caught the Sith in episode 2. It's like the episodes of The Acolyte were written by different people that never talk to each other. So don't try to tell me that this series is mediocre or average. This is some of the most inconsistent writing that I've ever seen. True, the acting can be quite mediocre, maybe a bit bad in places.
Hey! You survived. You killed Indara.
The action's a bit mediocre. The CGI looks good when they use it for what little time the show has actually spent in space, and the sets look quite well done, but the writing would be below average for a student film. Never mind a Disney project that cost $180 million. This is worse writing than in the B-movie Ice Spiders that I recently reviewed. But to be fair to Red Letter Media, maybe The Acolyte doesn't seem so bad to a bunch of guys that sat through a whole video called Exploding Farmints, which was video footage of a man who took a weapon to people's farms and exploded real-life animals. And if you've never watched their video on that, it makes me laugh every time. So in the first half hour of Red Letter Media's video, it felt like they mostly talked about politics. And Will Wheaton.
One of the really direct ways that I thought this season absolutely holds up a mirror to one of the greatest problems and I think tremendous moral failings of America is the way that we treat immigrants. And specifically the way ICE, which I believe is a Gestapo-like organization.
Yeah.
Will, no. The Gestapo were involved in the expiry of over 6 million people, Will. And unless you can show US Customs and Immigration doing that, you've become completely untethered from reality. And it appears he's not alone in that.
Inclusion, women's rights, more roles for women, that's all the stuff that came out of the 90s. Anti-authoritarian, anti-police, anti-capitalism, and these are all leftist politics. There are politics on the right, of course, but those aren't the people that are in Hollywood.
So did Red Letter Media ever actually talk about The Acolyte in their video about The Acolyte? Well, I made it to roughly the hour mark of the 1 hour 30-minute video supposedly about The Acolyte, and they'd still not talked about The Acolyte yet. And people complain about my intros being too long. Their video, despite the label, is not really about The Acolyte at all. It's more about the political arguments surrounding it. In short, Red Letter Media blame Lucasfilm for thumbing their noses obnoxiously at the fans. And boy, are some of them obnoxious.
Yes. In a very woman-centered world, which I was very excited to kind of be that, because I feel like Star Wars is very like patriarchal, so it was kind of cool to have like this sort of woman-centered figure.
And some fans for being a bit reactionary to what Red Letter Media see as an ordinary inclusion of current year politics. At one point, Mike says it's hard to judge the story of The Acolyte after only 4 episodes. But the series is only 8 episodes long. 4 is half of the series, and I very much doubt they'd be so forgiving of the politics if it was a different stripe. Red Letter Media really do go into apologetics for The Acolyte in their video, to the extent of wondering why people are bothering to criticise it when more important things are going on, like children starving.
I mean, there's people starving around the world.
which maybe is a bit of a weird take for guys that once did a 10-part series dissecting the Star Wars film The Phantom Menace. Maybe they changed over time. They do seem kind of sick of it all. That's what I get from the sentence in the description of their Acolyte video. This world has become an unbearable nightmare, and I want my ashes shot into a black hole. The Acolyte was supposed to be a mystery, but there's barely any mystery in it. The mystery of who did in Jedi Master Endara was introduced and finished in episode 1, and that didn't make any sense either. A ninja called May shows up in the opening scene to do in a Jedi Master, takes off her mask so the Jedi will recognise her, which we later find out she wouldn't have done anyway because the Jedi hasn't seen her since she was about 9 years old. She's now 25 and she looks extremely different. The ninja leaves her mask off so witnesses see her face, despite her stated objective being to bump off 4 Jedi, and it would undoubtedly be far easier to do that if the Jedi didn't have a description of her face. She leaves the witnesses alive, despite being willing to do them in as a distraction during the fight, and as a result, the Jedi go to arrest her identical twin sister because after 16 years of them not seeing each other, both of them still have the same haircut. Osha and the Jedi didn't think May was alive because they saw her fall from a platform 16 years ago, but this is a world setting where people can float. This is a series that feels like it was written by a child, and May thought Osha wasn't alive because... I don't know. The last time May saw Osha, she was fine. May fell off of a platform and survived somehow off camera, and then just assumed her sister didn't make it, and didn't bother to check for 16 years. Just barely any of the writing works in this show. Don't try to tell me this is average. Red Letter Media just seem to be willfully blind to the many problems in this show. The biggest mystery in the show is why Disney gave Leslie Headland, a person with not a great deal of writing experience, a reported $180 million to make this series.
Certainly, there have been times where, there's no way we're hiring a white male person.
Just kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken, but
how would they say it?
there's no way we're hiring a white male person. We wanted to hire somebody in the department a few years ago now, who was half black, but didn't appear half black. And there was a creative executive who was like, "We're not that's not what's wrong." They, the writers and actors hear all the time, looking to hire writers and actors who bring diversity. I'm not looking to bring on any more clients who are white.
Look, there's no way to sugarcoat this. If these clips are true and to be believed, Disney are clearly hiring for diversity and not for writing or acting ability, so there's a high likelihood both of those things are going to suffer. By definition, if you're not hiring the best writer, if they're a white male, then you aren't going to get the best writing. Episode 5 of The Acolyte on IMDb has a rating that's not so far away from that of the John Carpenter movie Big Trouble in Little China. I just reviewed Big Trouble and it's kind of a masterpiece. In reality, The Acolyte is not even close in quality to that, and I find it kind of revolting that some people would think it is. There are people on IMDb giving The Acolyte a perfect 10 out of 10. But is it true, as Red Letter Media imply, that the show is being review bombed? Well, they don't actually present any evidence for it. And how do you tell the difference between someone review bombing a show and someone just giving it a low score because they didn't like it? If people are giving it a low score before it even came out, maybe. It's kind of hard without mind reading unless they admit what they're doing. But there certainly is evidence that people are review bombing The Acolyte in the other direction. Take this review from IMDb, which was a 10 stars out of 10. And for these I've taken to using text to speech, but when the editor tried, they claimed that the only one that was working was the soothing accent of a Nigerian lady, which may be true, or they may just be angry at me for trying to stop them putting pictures of Snarky J all over my videos. I'm also starting to suspect that it was the editor that took my dog that time. Anyway, the review said,
"Great action, fans are so toxic. At the time of writing, this show hasn't even finished yet, but people are so quick to write about how much they dislike it. The actors are great, interesting, albeit it's a little confusing story thus far, but it's not a bad show."
But how does saying it's not a bad show to you make it a 10 out of 10 perfect show? Even the person writing this review clearly doesn't think it's perfect, but gave it a perfect score. And okay, so the show hasn't finished. people shouldn't write about how much they dislike it, but it is okay, it seems, to write about how much you like it. That is okay.
God forbid women play main characters in Star Wars, as all the bitter people are so quick to dismiss it.
This is somebody that's clearly not reviewing the show in good faith. Also, if it's just having a female lead that does it, why are people not review bombing House of the Dragon? Why on the same website, IMDb, do you have 2 female-led shows, both on right now, and yet The Acolyte is on a 3.4 out of 10, and House of the Dragon is on an 8.4? Did all the toxic fans just forget to review bomb that one? Or is it just a far better show, albeit one that I personally don't enjoy that much? I just find it all a bit too depressing.
I don't think that the identity politics has interfered with the quality of the story. I think it's just been focused on as opposed to the quality of the story.
Right.
And they said this after they just spent nearly an hour focusing on the identity politics around The Acolyte and not on the story. And then when they did get onto the story and I heard their takes, I wish I hadn't.
She's likable enough. She's got that neat little scene on the prison ship.
No, that was not a neat little scene. You can watch my review for why. Basically, the authorities had a prison ship manned solely with droids and used it to transport a hacker who could hack droids. The droid pilots then turned into chairs, and the hack probably saved everyone anyway, because the droids were piloting the ship through an asteroid belt at faster than the speed of light. What impact at that speed, and the ship is going to go full Holdo manoeuvre. They discuss how the show has tried to repaint the Sith and Jedi as being morally equivalent, and how it's not about good or evil, it's about power and who gets to wield it. But the episode so far never actually showed the witch cult suffering in any way at the hands of the Jedi or anyone else, and Rich just loses the plot at this point.
Because the Jedi have said no one in the universe can use the Force but us.
They want a monopoly on Force use.
Yeah, or I guess they're just trying to make sure that nobody does anything super bad with it and becomes like a villainous monster.
Who gives them the right to decide?
Exactly.
Well, who gave the Jedi that right, if you were paying attention to the show, would be the elected government of the Galactic Republic. And yeah, what right would elected politicians have to say that this clearly kindly old man shouldn't be using the Force? That wouldn't be dangerous in any way. And at least Mike hasn't gone completely insane.
It's good and evil are subjective. It's new politics, Rich.
It is the new politics, but it's why I'm fully on board with that.
Why would the witches be evil? I don't know.
Because they're using Force in an unsanctioned way that the Jedis don't approve of.
Did they
not under their thumb.
Did they show them doing anything particularly evil?
They do not.
Yeah.
They do not.
So they do this ceremony.
The impression I get is very much that the Jedi just don't like anybody using the Force. Which seems to be pretty immoral, that they're deciding other people can't use this thing that binds all life together, Mike.
I think it's sort of like the U.S. government doesn't want you making your own medicine.
It's more like the Christians determining they're the only ones who get to determine what is the proper sexuality people can have, and you can't be gay over there.
Maybe,
I don't approve of that.
Maybe. Or you can't enrich uranium on your own in your basement. That's against the law, probably, right?
Yes, it's probably more like that last one, isn't it? Why are people and Disney trying so hard to make excuses for the dark side and what were essentially space nasties?
If you were in Star Wars, would you be on the light or the dark side?
Dark side.
Yeah, 100% dark side. Dark side user right here.
Why specifically?
I'm so sorry, but the dark side is cooler.
I do agree with Red Letter Media that if you don't like something, don't watch it. And it's easy to say don't watch, but I'm rapidly running out of new things to watch that aren't filled with current year metropolitan political issues. Not even Scooby-Doo was safe. It's getting so every new TV show is filled with it. Every film is filled with it. Every game is filled with it. I also agree with them, instead of The Acolyte, just watch Farscape instead. It has some very good points. Scorpius is a great and well-written bad guy. It has a very strange collection of characters, but that show is from 1999. And the irony is not lost on me that in their video, Red Letter Media are broadly supportive of the inclusion of current year politics and entertainment, and then go and watch a show from 1999 that has none of it. And at no point do they consider that those two things may very well be linked.
Of course!
A big juicy clam would sure go great with this heat.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.